today. My name is Jamie Dix, and I'm a ADRC, or an Aging and Disability Resource Specialist at the ADRC. And Nicole, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Nicole Zimmerman, and I'm a disability benefit specialist with the ADRC.
So I'm going to go ahead and share a presentation. Please feel free to put questions in the chat. Tim's going to keep an eye on that, just so we make sure that we're providing information that is relevant to what you guys are hoping to learn today. Um, Okay, so like I said, we're the Aging and Disability Resource Center of Rock County. I'm going to try not to use abbreviations as we talk, but the ADRC will be one that I consistently use because we are also branded as the ADRC by the state. So all counties either have an ADRC or a tribal ADRC, or are part of like a consortium or a regional model. So everybody should have access to an ADRC. If you're joining us from another county, your ADRC should be able to do pretty much the same things or direct you to where to go. People always are to work with like the ADRC in the county that they live in. So this gets tricky, like people who live in Whitewater, that can be 3 different counties, or Edgerton, that's 2 different counties. So if you're not sure what county you live in, ADRC can usually figure it out pretty fast. Just by gathering information, we can look up your address to see where that is, but you're always going to start in the county that you are residing in. So just to review some information on the programs that the ADRC have, again, this is going to be like specific to Rock County. Again, ADRCs, they can provide this support. It might just be, or a county might, but it might be through like another division. So the programs that we have at our ADRC, which I think I'm saying so much, so I apologize. I just keep saying ADRC. We do information and assistance. So that is where somebody is just seeking information. Where do I go for something? So that can be just a call. It might end up being a meeting. It might evolve into talking more about what long-term supports could be for somebody. So that's what I do, is information and assistance. At our ADRC, everything starts with that, and then we make referrals out. So it might be a simple call of, I need help with transportation. Where can I go for that? And we can link you to where you can get transportation supports. We also have benefit specialists. So Nicole's going to talk a little bit more about that later, but just kind of high level, what a benefit specialist, what we have for that. Or we have 2 disability benefit specialists that work with individuals from 18 or 17 and a half to 59. And then we have an elder benefit specialist that works with individuals 60 and older. So like I said, I'm going to let Nicole talk about that later. I don't want to get into too much for that. We also have a dementia care specialist. So that is somebody who works with caregivers, family members who are caring for an individual with dementia. So again, not the population that we're talking about today, but we all have people in our life, and I want to make sure that everybody knows what the ADRC can offer. So the dementia care specialist, she does support groups, workshops, memory screens, consults with families, and just kind of caregiving for that. We also have adult protective services. So that is if there is an abuse or neglect or exploitation, they do the investigations for those individuals of adults at risk over age 18. So that could be like elderly population, or it might be somebody with like an intellectual disability who's being exploited, being neglected in the community as well. Adult protective services, they can also at times assist with guardianship or provide information on like guardianship and decision making for adults. And then our last unit is the aging unit. So if you've seen those little like Rock County Transit mini buses around, that goes through our aging unit. They do the home delivered meal programs for Rock County. They have a variety of health promotion programs to keep people independent in the community, respite programs, Wednesday walks, and cycling without age. Those are both summer programs. The only one for majority of those, you have to be 60 or older to participate in. Rock County Transit, you do not need to be. You just need to be an adult that identifies with having a disability. They provide transportation within Rock County, and that can be up to a $12 round trip ride. So a lot of times that is the least expensive form of transportation if somebody's outside of like the bus, just looking at like transportation options. And then cycling without age, that is a bike program that is in I think it's at Palmer Park in the summer, and to schedule a ride for that goes through our office as well. So those are the programs that are offered at the ADRC. And then who do we help? So today we're talking about working with adults who are, or young adults who are 17 and a half or older with intellectual disabilities or physical disabilities. We also work with aging population, and for our definition, it's a young 60 and older. And then we also work with caregivers or family members who are seeking like support for somebody in their family or resources, either as a caregiver or for somebody to remain in their home and maybe looking for some supports. So today we're focusing on how can the ADRC assist individuals with transitioning from school into the adult world. So how can the ADRC be your partner throughout this? So I'm just going to focus on kind of three big areas. There's a lot of milestones at this time. But today I wanted to just review on kind of the long-term planning and how the ADRC can be involved in that, from going from your school support team into who's going to be involved after school. I recognize a lot of families rely on their school supports as who they go to for resources. And I highly recommend trying to get hooked up with your ADRC at that 17 and a half, because that's going to be the place that you can connect for resources going forward. Several of the Rock County schools, I've gone out to meet like with students, or they've come to the ADRC and the Human Service Building in Rock County that allows individuals just to be familiar of like where we are, or I've been to this building, I know what they do. So it's always fun to see kids come back who've been here and they tell their parents, I've been here before. And so then they say, this is what this place does. The other thing that we're going to talk about are benefits as somebody turns 18, and then decision making. So when somebody's working with the ADRC, again, I encourage people, we can start working with them at 17 and a half. And if a youth is working with the children's long-term care program, they help with getting kids connected to the ADRC. Not all people work with the children's program. So it might just be making that contact on their own or with assistance from somebody. So in contacting the ADRC, just kind of the steps that we go through when we work with somebody. We might connect with somebody by phone. They might just come in as a walk-in. They're in the building. They want to know what we do. They were told to come here. We get emails. So that's kind of how just the entry point of contacting the ADRC. So that might result in just talking about with them on the phone, what are they looking for? So depending upon how that conversation goes, we likely are going to schedule a meeting to talk with them to find out, what information are they needing? What's important to their life? Just kind of these next step, what's going on after high school? So a lot of things we focus on at that point are like, who's important to you? What supports do you have now? What kind of supports do you think you need? What are your health conditions? Making sure that people are connected with health resources. So at that point, it might just be a conversation about that and going on to give information, just to say, here are some resources for you. If somebody says, I'm living with my family, I am already connected to employment support. I just need to know how to get to and from work. That might just lead to information of saying, okay, here are some transportation resources. Do you feel like anything else is needed? It might just be, that's all I needed. That's the end of involvement with ADRC. In the future, they might say, oh, now I need some help with paying for groceries. So then it just kind of loops back to that first step of, what is the need right now? But if we're talking to somebody and it's identified, okay, you're going to need, some maybe significant support in making this transition to the adult world outside of school. So that might be, I want to work, but I need help with finding a job. I need some help with learning how to access the community, learning how to do things like grocery shop, learning how to ride the bus. How am I going to spend my free time? So that's going to be a bigger conversation that kind of goes into what we call as options counseling and just looking at what kind of resources are available for somebody in the community. So at that point, we might start talking about long-term care programs. So it might be, do you need some support with coordinating? How are you going to find a job? How are you going to connect with transportation? That you might need a little bit more services for that. So at that point, when we're talking about adult long-term care programs, that is support in the community to help somebody be as independent as possible. And so when we meet with somebody for that, we are really focusing on being independent. So it might still be like, I'm going to live at home for a while, but my goal is to move on my own. So then it's just the discussion of what kind of services or supports would you need for that. So, like I said, a lot of times that might be talking about the long-term care programs. So in Rock County, when we're looking at the long-term care programs, which are called Family Care Partnership, or IRAS, we're going to talk about what kind of support that somebody's needing with their day-to-day activities. So that would be talking about support with like bathing, making meals, taking medication, managing their money. And that might not be that somebody's needing maybe that hands-on assistance with making, with like bathing or doing laundry, but it might be those cues and learning how to do that. So we're capturing functionally what is somebody needing assistance with in order to be as independent as possible. So we go through that assessment to look at where somebody is needing that support. Next, we would look at financial eligibility. So these programs are Medicaid funded. So if somebody doesn't have Medicaid, we might go help with the process of helping them apply for Medicaid. And that's where Nicole's program assists with that as well. So then once if we know, okay, you're eligible for these long-term care programs, we've identified that you need some long-term support in order to achieve those goals, then we're going to look at those program options. And again, those programs, Family Care Partnership, or IRAS, we would go through how the difference with those programs, how the services themselves that they cover, the kind of that benefit package, they cover the same services, how they're received are a little bit different. So we help people understand the difference of that, and just making sure that they have the information to make the best decision for them, and then going forward with enrolling in a program for somebody to work with a long-term team. Because at the ADRC, we are not case managers. We're not involved for on a long-term basis. We provide short-term assistance. So our role is really to make sure people have the resources that they need and can assist with connecting to them if needed, or if they're able to do that on their own. The ADRC is not like a one and done service. Somebody can use us multiple times if needed, but that would be the process on enrolling in a long-term care program. And then Nicole, if you want to talk about just what the benefit specialist role is.
Sure. So with the benefit specialists, we work with individuals 17 and a half all the way up until the age of 59. We help individuals apply for public benefits such as the Medicaid, food share, and Social Security. So we will go over like the steps in the process in applying for Medicaid. We can assist with just kind of giving you guidance on how to apply, or we can assist with applying like one-on-one. Same with food share, we would do the same. We can apply going through with like the access account, or we can apply over the phone with an individual to help them get food share. The other benefit or the other part of our job role is to assist individuals with applying for Social Security. So there's Social SSI, Supplemental Security Income, and then SSDI, Supplemental or Social Security Disability Insurance. So we help individuals kind of go through the whole process with Social Security if they wanted assistance throughout the whole process. Otherwise, if they wanted just some questions answered along the way, we could answer the questions. We can kind of pick up a case wherever a person is at and help throughout the process. Otherwise, what we would do if it was a 17 and a half, we would go through the Social Security piece and just explain how to apply, and then we would go throughout the process with that. Like Jamie said, we are not case managers either, so we are here kind of as a service to kind of help get the process completed and answer questions along the way. And then we do work with income maintenance and Social Security Administration to get all of these services completed and get the individual benefits.
Tim, do we have any questions so far?
No, I've just been putting link after link in the chat, so people are probably listening and clicking all at the same time. So no questions yet, but please feel free to put your question in the chat, and I can relay it to the speakers. We'll also have time at the end when we'll turn the recording off for you to ask questions as well.
And I was just looking at this. Sorry, Jamie, can you go back for 1 second?
Go ahead.
So I was also looking at it. We also do help with the appeals. If there was a initial denial for an SSI application or an SSDI application, we can help with that initial appeal as well. Sorry.
So the last thing that I wanted to touch on at this age, like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on, and I don't like to overwhelm families or anybody with information. So another big change, though, is decision making at 18. So when anybody turns 18, they become their own decision maker, regardless of disability or not. So that is sometimes a shock to families to hear if their child has a significant disability, that they're not all of a sudden just automatically a decision maker. So this is something to consider too, because it's an important step and it's a big decision. So there are some options on decision making when somebody turns 18. So this is just kind of what all the options are and just a spectrum of how they can be used. So for somebody if they're wanting to make their own decision, they can use something called a release of information. If they're making their own decisions, they understand information, but maybe they want their parent still to be at their IEP or still to be able to contact their doctor. That this is typically a form that like schools or doctor offices, any kind of county services, long-term care programs, all have on file to say, I want you to be able to share information with another individual on my behalf. So that's on where somebody has the most control on their decision making, is a release of information. The next one would be supported decision making, and this is newer. I can't think of what year it came out. It's probably longer than I realize. But this was developed as kind of an alternative to guardianship. The go-to used to just be everybody had to have guardianship. That was just kind of the thought people had. And it was, you know, a lot of people have a guardian that don't need to, just because that was the direction people were steered. So supported decision making is where an individual is still their own person, they're making their own decisions, but they're identifying somebody that they want with them when they're making major decisions, to make sure that they're understanding information. So there could be the form, it's very simple, but it goes over things like, you know, when I'm making financial decisions, when I'm making healthcare decisions, decisions regarding my mental health, decisions with school. And somebody can identify on the form who they want to be that supported decision maker, but also what decisions they want that person to be involved in. So this I think of is when I meet with kids, they will often just nod through everything I'm saying and say they understand. And then their parent will go, they don't know what you're saying. Let me explain it. And then they just have the words, you know, your child, or, you know, supports. Even when I work with like the children's long-term support case managers, when they're involved, they also they know the youth that they work with and know a better way to maybe explain it to that person, or just have that shared experience. And sometimes when we're all making those major healthcare decisions, it's always good to have somebody with you, because it's helpful for somebody else to hear the information. So supported decision making, that's something that I explain as we all naturally do when we're making big decisions. We talk to people around us to make sure that we have the information to make the best decision for us. So this is just a formal way to say, this is why this person is in the room with me, and this is why I want them here, to make sure I understand that information. That supported decision maker might not agree with the decision that the person is making, but they know they have all the information to make the best decision that they want to make. I also use the example of, we didn't all just miraculously make perfect decisions when we turned 18. That sometimes it takes some practice to learn how to make decisions, to figure out what's important to you, you know, when you want to gather some more information. So that is what supported decision making is. And you can use a release of information and supported decision making together. Supported decision making doesn't stop a release from being needed. So even if somebody has a supported decision making document done, their doctor has it, they're still going to say, we need a release of information to share this information. The next one is a living will, and I don't see these often because that is a specific document that tells doctors what somebody want, like what kind of care that they want if they're not able to communicate it. So that's not something that I see often. That's typically a medical form that can be completed. The state has that form on the website. DHS has it available. Again, that can be used with supported decision making, because again, it's the individual telling the doctor what to do when they cannot communicate that to them. The next one is power of attorney for finance. So that is a document that somebody can complete to have assistance with managing finances. When somebody signs that document, they're not giving up the right to manage their own finances, but that power of attorney for finances can also manage it. So you're both making those decisions together about like money and property. And if somebody has a power of attorney for finance, they can apply for public benefits on their behalf. So that is like food share, Medicaid. It does not, I don't think it covers like Social Security though. Do you want to say something about that, Nicole?
Sure. Yeah, we would have to have a power of attorney or guardianship in order to be working with someone regarding like Social Security benefits. It's got to be like a power of attorney of healthcare.
So for power of attorney for healthcare, that is a document that somebody can sign to say these are what they appoint to, I'm sorry, let me back up. they complete a form to appoint an agent to make healthcare decisions in the event that they are not able to. So that again is a state form that can be completed. There's also packets of these, but the state form is just kind of what the standard is. So that's why I'm referring to those. That if somebody's no longer able to make medical decisions, so if you think about if there's a major medical incident that happens, if somebody gets into a car accident, not able to communicate what their needs are, they've appointed an agent to make those decisions on their behalf. And there should be some conversations on kind of what your wishes are with your healthcare power of attorney. So that is a document that somebody might complete and it never becomes activated. Just meaning that an individual is able to continue to make their healthcare decisions. It becomes activated when two medical professionals, one being a doctor, signs off and says this person is no longer able to make healthcare decisions. So again, that could be if somebody is in a car accident, not able to make decisions, they recover, now they're able to communicate, understand healthcare information, that document can be deactivated. So that's kind of middle of the ground. That can be used again with releases of information, supported decision-making. They can go hand in hand. When somebody signs a power of attorney for healthcare, they need to understand what they're signing. So to have somebody sign that when they turn 18 and then all of a sudden go to the doctor and say they don't understand information, this needs to be activated. That's not necessarily how that document is meant to work. The next one that I'll kind of cover as we're getting into having the individual having a little less control would be a representative payee. So that is an individual, it can be a person, it can be an agency that is appointed by Social Security when somebody's not able to understand or act to manage their benefits. So again, that's just going to be their benefits that they're overseeing, like their SSI or SSDI that Nicole had mentioned earlier. So if somebody has a job, they're still managing that money. The purpose of the rep payee is to make sure somebody's like basic needs are met. So if they are living independently, the rep payee is using their benefits to make sure like rent is paid, that they have food or money for food, that their bills are paid, just to make sure, again, those basic needs are met. And that is something that goes through Social Security. So even when we get calls on like, I think this person needs a rep payee, we direct them to Social Security for that. Do you have anything about that, Nicole?
We would also direct them to Social Security. We can't be involved with the representative payee stuff.
Also, just wanted to, there is a question in the chat that I don't know if you know of any resources, but asking if there is currently a caregiver support network to help each other navigate through the resources. Because I know that you are talking a lot about resources and there's a lot out there. But do you know of any group on the ground that's helping to network together? The only one that I thought of right now would be the WisconsinCaregiver.org. I know they focus on older, but I know they have some members that have younger, young adults as well. And so they have different groups that will come up. But are you aware of anything going on that's helping each other navigate resources?
For this in particular, not necessarily, unless if you want to talk about the autism project, Tim.
I can a little bit. So we are the Wisconsin Autism Transition Demonstration Project, WADI, is starting in Rock County, and we will be looking to gather parents together, sometimes in a sort of a group setting, sometimes to share resources, share what we know. We're just getting off the ground, but if anybody on the call is a parent or caregiver of someone 13 through 26 with autism, I would love to talk with you further. Just put your name and email in the chat, and I'll send you a short survey to follow up on. So we're hoping. Stay tuned.
So relating to the question, I would love if there was a group like that. Unfortunately, like I can't connect parents and families just because stuff with us is confidential. But I always say like families are a lot of times the best resources because they have used these resources. They often know of stuff that we haven't even heard of yet, which is awesome. Um, they also might say this didn't work for us, but then we found this, and just able to problem solve. And right now there is not a group like that that I know of. Um, Resources that I've kind of gone to over time. I've looked at like Family Voices. They do a lot of programs. I think I don't know if they spoke at this, but they'll do like a what's after high school. Their website also just has a lot of like fact sheets and um, resources. But I know that's not the same as talking to somebody and saying, did this work for you? Did this not work for you? Um, so unfortunately, not a group that I know of that does that right now. Um, just back to decision making and something I thought of with rep payee. This is not the same as rep payee at all, but one other thing that's not on here with just kind of supports money management often comes up with just kind of learning how to manage money. Some things to consider could be like a dual signature bank account, just that both people have to, sign off just so it's not, oh, I have all this money in the bank and not realizing, oh, I also have like bills to pay and how to manage that. Um, Also like limits on debit cards just to prevent either exploitation or just learning how to manage money that you're not just withdrawing everything, that there are a limit on that as well. The next one is conservatorship, which I don't know much about because Rock County doesn't do those to my knowledge. We just don't see those. The last thing that I'm going to talk about is just guardianship. So this will be the most restrictive of decision making. It's sometimes that is just what somebody is needing. So a guardian is somebody that the court appoints. So it's a court process that somebody has to go through to appoint somebody that's going to make decisions if an individual is not. That might be a family member, it could be a friend, it can be a volunteer guardian, or it could be a professional. So there are corporate guardians that's your job, is to act as a guardian to make decisions on somebody's behalf. So when somebody is going through that process of guardianship, that's not a decision like the ADRC makes if somebody needs a guardian, that a case manager makes, that a school makes. It's again, a court process that somebody has to have an evaluation from their doctor saying that they're not understanding information. The kind of the legal definition of it is that somebody is named incompetent, that they're not able to make decisions, not able to communicate their decision to other people, that they could be at risk if nobody is put in the place of making decisions for them. So there are two different types of guardians. There's what is called a guardian of person, and that is where somebody is making decisions more like personal choices. That could be medical care, where somebody's living, supports that are in place. So kind of those daily decisions that we make for, or not even daily, but just kind of those level of decisions to make sure that we have the supports that we need. And then there's also guardian of a state, where that's where somebody is making decisions more of a like property, money. And in that instance, they can apply for public benefits on your behalf too. So, and I know somebody from our office is speaking to this about this further later this month, but this is just kind of the last big thing I always think about when I'm talking with families with transition youth. So this is a resource that Department of Health and Health Services put out in 2025, so just last year, on transitioning to adult services and just kind of all those considerations. So the things that we talked about today, they're all from this. It's a great resource. It is, I think, about like 55 pages, so it's not a short read, but it highlights a lot of different considerations to think about. Just kind of the time frame of planning on transitioning, how to healthcare things, which I think Tim, you spoke on earlier in this session, but just the importance of healthcare, understanding your disability, when to disclose that, who to disclose that to, public benefits. It covers information on jobs, employment, housing, long-term care programs. So this is a great resource to people and has a lot of links throughout it, just to either link to additional information or places that might have forms that can be utilized. So that's what the QR code will take you to if you do that. And when I meet with people, if I'm the one involved in kind of this transition for youth, I always make sure I review this with people. I give it to families. I don't go through all of it. It just kind of based on our conversation, I'll pick a few things out and go through that with people just to make sure that they crack it open and do see that it is a useful resource to utilize. And then this is our last slide. So this is where the Aging and Disability Resource Center is. We are at the Dr. Daniel Hale Williams Resource Center in Rock County. We are on the south side of the building, our entrances. So if somebody's coming here for the DVR Job Center, we're going to be the same door as that. Like I'd said, people, you can connect with us by calling the ADRC, by just stopping in, by emailing us. Sometimes people say, I was told to call here and I don't know why, or somebody told me to come here, what do you do? And that is fine too. We are all trained to kind of navigate what that conversation is with figuring out, maybe who referred them. That kind of can help us break down why they're here, or just talking about like what's going on with their life, what their goals are, to try to figure out where to best connect somebody with resources. So that is our presentation today.
Well, thank you very much. And you know, of course, that I totally appreciate the shout out that healthcare transition is included in the transition guide. A fantastic update, if I might say so myself. So well done with that. I do recommend that life as an adult. It's comprehensive. It covers a lot of stuff that you may not even think about, and that's one of the things that I know that we want to avoid in transition is we want to make sure that we're planning early enough. We're not overwhelmed, but planning early enough and we know what's coming. And sometimes we don't get the whole picture. So that guide is a wonderful way of letting us know of some things we don't have. Presently, there are no questions in the chat. Just give me a moment and I'm just going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thank everybody for being here. And then we could take some questions non-recorded if anybody has some. So again, one moment and I'm going to stop the recording.